Matt Estridge here with Tier 1 Tactics. I was recently recommended a new podcast by Vigilance Elite. They're out of Nashville, Tennessee. It's a former Navy SEAL. He had his first podcast. And I was recommended it because guys on my staff who were my mentors or former colleagues from special operations communities or Tier 1 are the same as these guys. They just tell it like it is. They're open-minded. They're willing to continue to be students. They're actually willing to be vulnerable. Mike Glover, the former Green Beret, spent some time in the Army in very special units, Tier 1, went over to CIA and did some contract work with GRS, which I have some guys on my staff from there and friends from there. We used to train a lot with them together because they really enjoyed the unconventional CQB that we did in unconventional environments. I resonated with how truthful they are and honest, and reminded me of all my former colleagues or guys on my staff now. And what Mike Glover said about GRS rang true as well. Many of the people I've worked with from there that transferred to where I was or transferred from where I was to there really spoke highly about the different groups of special operations people all coming together, all had a little different tactics sometimes, but whatever worked for security, he agreed with, and the amount of shooting ability that they had, he spoke to because where I came from had the highest qualifications in the government, and he alludes to that. So it was very interesting to listen to them. I really enjoyed it. You should follow them on social media. I checked them out after this and just really liked what they're doing. Enjoy the small clip from Vigilance Elite that I put on here about that specific portion of the topic I was discussing. Have a great day. God bless.
The best dudes I've ever met have been in that job because I know because of the vetting process that they're the best shooters in the world. Mm-hmm. Even better than my standards in special operations.
Yeah.
I mean, I've shot with the best shooters in the world in special operations, and then I get to this job and I was super impressed by the standards. The shooting qual is the hardest shooting qual in the government. There's no doubt about it because I've been to the firearms instructor development course at Camp Perry to vet the hardest and most difficult courses. Outside of the U.S. Marshal, the Air Marshal Service, it is the most difficult qual. So having that confidence that these guys are vetted, qualified to be where they're at, and that the myriad of backgrounds and experiences are brought together, I thought it was real cool, man.
Yeah.
I was super impressed. For the direct hires that I operated with, the independent contractors, there's nothing bad I could say about any of them. Or operations-wise, the best I've ever worked with.
Well, that's cool to hear. One of the biggest struggles that I had working there was the integration of tactics. All because you're working with all the best units from all special operations. Everybody has their way. Some guys, like myself, can learn new ways and realize, hey, this is what we have to do, and we have to be uniform if we're going to work together. And then there's, the other crowd that they can't let go of, their specific or their unit-specific tactics. Where did you fall in that spectrum?
I try to strike a good balance. I did have recent GWAT experience in tactics, and you know how that is. The further displaced you get from the war, there's a whole bunch of different tactics that change. Mm-hmm. So I was heard, when I brought up things, but I also try to be very careful about, one, being a new guy, but two, understanding that as long as the tactics worked, there could be a different way to skin the cat. I mean, there were things that I didn't necessarily agree with, but there are going to be different viewpoints and tactics. But if it works and doesn't violate security, I'm okay with that.